introduction. That's even more of an introduction. Is that my song? That's what my high school kids would say. Here she comes, Jaws. That song to me can mean fear or dread, I know to some of you, but to me, it takes me back down memory lane to a time when my son was still at home and he would crank up his surround sound on his television, and no matter where we were at in the house, if I was doing laundry, reading a book, we would hear that and we'd have to laugh. And we thought, oh no, here it comes again. Here comes Jaws through the house. And it's funny that when you're going through a bad time, you go back to those fun times. And we had a bad time in November of 2010. And I was in this very sanctuary over there in probably the second or third row, waiting for Sunday school to start when my phone rang. That's very unusual because I never bring my phone to church on Sunday because I don't want to be embarrassed by it going off. And it was my daughter-in-law who was sitting here, and she's getting my side of the story, which is the first time she's ever heard it, so this is going to be exciting for both of us. And she was telling me that she was taking my son to the emergency room in Kalamazoo, and that he was in intense pain, vomiting, and the strangest thing was that his eye was swollen and bulging from the eye socket. We talked a while, and we made arrangements for the care of their daughter, my granddaughter, for later on the day. And I immediately asked the Sunday school class, please be praying with us for my son. And my husband and I felt so much peace come over us during this whole time that we stayed all through church. We didn't get in the car and drive to the emergency room. We knew that God had his hand in it and he was capable of taking care of the situation. So after church, we picked up our granddaughter and we took her to her cousin's to a birthday party of all things as we're going through this crisis. The children are playing oblivious as the grown-ups are all waiting with anticipation for that phone to ring. Well, my daughter-in-law called and said that all the tests were taken, but the specialist would not be able to read those tests until Monday. So they sent him back home, and we all got on the phone, and we began to ask for prayer for anybody who we knew were believers. My youngest daughter came home from Grayling with her husband because she needed to supervise not only her brother, but her parents through the whole procedure, making sure everything was taken care of. The news from the specialist the next day was really no news. They were not sure what was causing the pain and the bulging of the eye. They suspected a tumor, and a decision was made to send him to an oncologist, the best in the country, in Philadelphia. And his appointment was for the next Wednesday. And God was even in the planning and the details of that, because he made way for my son-in-law from Grayling to have time off from work to be able to drive my son Matt and his wife Joy to Philadelphia. And we as grandparents, and with Joy's mother, took care of our granddaughter during this time. So everything worked out, everything went well. Well, as Wednesday came along, I was at Lake Area Christian School, where I get the honest and wonderful privilege of being a teacher to a bunch of wonderful kids. And I had the high schoolers and the staff all praying with me for the outcome of that day. We were all waiting for the phone to ring, and when it did ring, the news was not bad. It was just more waiting for tests and for doctors to read the test. And for someone who had been waiting for over a week to get relief from this pain and to know what was going on, it was hard for my son and for those with him. The next day, a doctor did come in and looked at the test, and he believed that it was a tumor and that this tumor was growing rapidly. And when I got off the phone, I remember saying to my high schoolers, stand back and watch what God can do. Now, for them, that's nothing unusual. They think I'm a little eccentric and crazy already, so they just thought, okay, Mrs. Kozik, we know. It's one of your God things, right? So I got on the phone, and I called the women's group to start praying. And the story in Exodus 17, 11 through 13 came back to my mind And it's a story of Joshua, and he is in the middle of a battle against the Ammonites. And as long as Moses kept his arms raised, Joshua and the army were winning. But as soon as he lowered his arms, they were losing. So he had two friends, Aaron, his brother, and Hur, who would hold Moses' arms up for him so that he would be able to sustain them in battle. And Joshua did win the battle. I felt like Moses. I could not stand on my own. I needed the strength and prayers of other believers. By this time, everyone I knew, plus many more that I had no clue of, were praying. The next day began more as the same, until mid-afternoon, when another doctor came in and looked at the x-rays and the test and said, "That's not a tumor, that is a blood clot. I have seen some like this before. We'll put him on an aspirin steroid regimen, and time should cause this clot to shrink in size." And boy, let me tell you, when I got off the phone that time, and I was shouting, "Woo-hoo!" the kids were like, "Oh no, she's finally gone off the deep end." But I got to say, my God showed up big. It has been about a year since this happened. My son is working full-time, is living a life to the fullest. He does have some vision loss in the right eye. But you know something? God is good. God is wonderful. And I know that I, along with all of us, need a body of believers to fellowship with during all times, good or bad. And I like this quote that I read in a book written by Mike Leonard, "The Ride of Our Lives." And it seems to state how we each touch each other's lives. It's the factor of one. In the complete equation of life, a staggering number of human connections are made. All it takes is one, added or subtracted, and the final balance changes in ways impossible to calculate.